Under the golden light of an autumn afternoon, the wind carried the scent of dust and distant rain across Redstone Valley. It was the kind of wind that hummed through the grass and made the town's single church bell sigh. In that hush of fading day, a young woman stood near the edge of the dirt road, a basket balanced carefully on her hip. Ayanna Bluebird, aged 20, had the kind of quiet grace that came from years of learning to move unnoticed. Her dress was simple, dark blue with small white beads stitched along the sleeves, and her long black braid was tied with a faded ribbon the color of the sky before a storm. She had made the ribbon herself, back when her mother still sang in the evenings. When her parents passed, 3 winters ago, grief became her only companion. She survived by weaving baskets, trading them for coins or flour in town. The people of Redstone admired her craft but kept their distance from her. Some would say her baskets carried bad luck. Others said they were too perfect, that no woman like her could make beauty without witchcraft. Every whisper felt like a splinter beneath her skin. Ayanna didn't answer their stares or their murmured words. Each day she stood by the well in silence, hoping someone might look at her without suspicion. They never did. She would walk back home as the sun slipped down, her shadow long on the dust, her heart heavy with things she would never say. The road to her cabin wound along the river, past the old willow trees her father once carved canoes from. That night, as she reached the bend where the trees met the trail, she heard the low rumble of hooves. Her body tensed. Then a tall figure appeared through the twilight mist. Elias Kane, age 30, was a man the valley both respected and avoided. He had the kind of size that made doorways seem too narrow and the kind of silence that made people wary. He wore a black shirt rolled at the sleeves, trousers the color of earth, and a weathered brown hat that shaded his eyes from the dying light. He dismounted slowly, his boots stirring the dust. The horse behind him snorted, a sound sharp and alive against the river's quiet murmur. "I didn't mean to startle you," he said. His voice was low, calm, carrying a warmth that didn't quite match his rough appearance. "Didn't think anyone else walked this road after sundown." Ayanna shifted the basket in her hands. "I was on my way home," she said. Her tone was soft but not afraid, just measured, like someone who had learned caution the hard way. He nodded toward the basket. "Those yours? I've seen a few like that in town. They're beautiful." No one had ever said that word to her directly. Beautiful. She didn't know what to do with it. "Thank you," she whispered. Elias looked as though he wanted to say more but didn't. Instead, he tipped his hat and mounted his horse again. "Safe walk, miss." She nodded, and for a long moment neither moved. Then he turned and rode off into the fading light, his figure swallowed by the horizon. Ayanna stood there until the sound of hooves became only memory. That night she sat beside her fire, her fingers tracing the weave of the half-finished basket in her lap. The word lingered. "Beautiful." She whispered it once under her breath, and it felt strange, like speaking to a stranger in the dark. Outside, the wind pressed against the windows, and she thought of the tall man with kind eyes. Over the next week, Elias began appearing in small, unspoken ways. Once, she found a bundle of fresh reeds left by the riverbank where she always gathered her materials. Another time, he repaired the loose wheel on her cart without leaving a note. He never spoke of it when they crossed paths. Just tipped his hat, offered a quiet morning, and went about his way. The townsfolk noticed. Redstone was small, and silence had ears. One afternoon, as Ayanna arranged her baskets on a wooden stand by the well, 2 women passing by lowered their voices just enough for her to hear. "He's been visiting her cabin, they say," one whispered. "He'll lose his reputation keeping company with her kind." The other laughed softly. "No man with sense would marry a native girl. They belong to the woods, not to decent homes." Ayanna's hands froze on the reed she was tying. She kept her eyes down, but the words burrowed deep. She packed her baskets early that day and left town before the sun began to drop. By the time she reached the river, the tears had already dried on her cheeks. She thought she was alone until a familiar voice came from behind. You left early, Elias said. He stood a few paces back, his expression unreadable. Something wrong? She turned slowly, her voice brittle. They talk about me. About you. I've heard worse talk, he replied gently. But you don't understand, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. To them I'm something less. A shadow walking among them. No man would accept a native woman as his wife. Elias stepped closer, his face softening. The river behind them shimmered with dying light. Maybe they don't know what a wife means, he said quietly. Maybe they've forgotten. His words settled between them like dust on still water. Iona looked away, afraid to let hope rise. Hope had teeth. Hope hurt. When she looked up again, he was gone, leaving only the fading print of his boots in the dirt. The next day, a storm gathered over Redstone. The wind came wild, sweeping dust through the streets and bending the signs that hung over the saloon. Iona went to town anyway. She had to sell enough to buy grain for the week. As she reached the square, she saw a group of men standing near her stall, half-drunk, restless. One of them picked up a basket and laughed. You call this work? My wife could make better out of chicken wire. He crushed it in his hands, letting the pieces fall at her feet. Iona said nothing. She knelt and began to gather the reeds quietly. The men laughed harder. Then a voice cut through the noise like thunder. That's enough. Elias stood at the edge of the square, rain dripping from the brim of his hat. His eyes were cold now, harder than she had ever seen. The crowd stilled. He walked forward slowly, every step deliberate, the sound of his boots echoing between the buildings. He picked up the broken basket, brushed the mud from it, and turned to face the men. You think breaking something makes you strong? He asked. His voice was low, dangerous in its calm. No one answered. Elias turned toward Iona. Miss Bluebird, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, would you marry me? The rain seemed to stop midair. Iona stared at him, her mouth parted, unable to find words. The crowd murmured, shocked. Here? She asked finally, her voice trembling. Here, he said. Before them, before the sky, before anyone who ever told you you're not enough. Her heart pounded so hard she thought the whole valley could hear it. The world had always taken from her. She had never imagined it could give something back. From the edge of the square, 2 elders from her tribe stepped forward. They had known her father, once. One of them raised his hand solemnly. Let it be witnessed, he said, under the eyes of earth and sky. And so, in the rain-soaked silence, the ceremony was held. No church walls, no dresses or rings, just words, steady and clear. Elias knelt, mud clinging to his knees, and when she gave her quiet yes, a murmur rippled through the crowd. Some turned away. Others stared, stunned. But the moment belonged only to them. Elias rose, took her hands and kissed her, first on the forehead, then softly on the lip. It wasn't a kiss of possession but of promise, the kind that said, I see you, and I choose you anyway. The valley seemed to exhale. A single drumbeat echoed from beyond the river, faint but certain, and then another. Someone from her tribe began to sing, the notes blending with the rain. Iona's tears mixed with the storm as Elias offered his hand. She took it, and together they moved to the rhythm, slow and steady. 2 figures beneath a silver sky, dancing where the world had once said they could not belong. Around them, the people of Redstone stood silent, not approving, not condemning, just watching. The rain fell harder, washing away the dust from the road, from their faces, from years of shame that no longer had a home. When the music faded, Elias leaned close and whispered, We'll build something the rain can't wash away. She smiled, a real smile this time, small and trembling and alive. The air between them felt new, as if the world had turned a page. Later, when they returned to her cabin by the river, he fixed the door that always stuck and lit a lantern near the window. The firelight warmed the room, flickering against the walls where her baskets hung. He traced a finger over one and said, You made these with your hands. You can make anything. She looked at him through the glow, the storm still whispering beyond the glass. "Maybe," she said softly. "Maybe we both can." Outside, the river carried the reflection of their light down toward the valley. The sound of the rain softened, and the night took a breath. Somewhere in the distance, the church bell rang once, as if to seal the moment. Years later, they would say the cabin still stood, its porch facing east, the willow trees guarding it like sentinels. Some claimed that on quiet nights, when the wind came down from the hills, you could hear faint music, 2 footsteps moving slow over the earth. But for now, on that storm-soaked night, all that mattered was the warmth of their hands, the steady rhythm of their hearts, and the fragile, defiant peace that only love could make. And if the old winds could speak, they might have said what the world never could: that no heart was ever too wild to be seen, and no soul too different to be loved.